Okay, hi everyone, hope you could hear me. So originally this video was planning as a response or more like a commentary on Sabine's video called Should We Defund Academia? This one. Honestly, before I even watched the video, I read some comments and I see some pretty dumb one, like easy ones. And I thought, oh, okay, I guess he just forgot to give people the right arguments. So I have to address those comments myself. And then I watched her video and realized that actually all of those questions in the comment section were properly addressed. It's just people didn't quite engage with her arguments, or at least I haven't seen them coming up with new ones. So overall, I think this video is quite perfect, and I pretty much have nothing to add for the main part, for the main argument. So instead, I decided to slightly switch the topic and address her current position on the role of science in the government, which is states here in one little sentence, and as well as comparing it to Yaron's Brook position in his video Improving the American Constitution, which I also disagree with. Let me begin by playing this clip so you'll see what she says.
There are some good reasons for tax-paid research. For example, any research to do with national security or research that's necessary to inform Parliament, preserve national heritage, or that allows federal agencies to check claims made by companies. For this reason, I strongly doubt that academia will ever entirely disappear.
Okay, so let me start better from the very beginning, the basics. How do we even judge what the proper role of science in the government is? So first of all, what the proper function of government, of US government, right? The proper function of US government is the protection of individual rights. In fact, yeah, I can find it for you here. In the Declaration of Independence, it's clearly stated that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So this original function was gradually but entirely perverted by those leftist altruists and replaced by the function of redistribution of wealth, which is entirely moral. Regardless of whether you are like stupid, broke, old, sick, or on contrary, very talented and bright and doing some fancy research, you're not entitled to other people's wealth. Imagine, for example, I don't know, Neil deGrasse Tyson giving his lectures in public, and then he's like asking for contribution, like saying, "Oh, sir, would you like to contribute, please?" And somebody say, "Oh, sure, of course. Here's some money for you." And he's going to some other person and asking, "Sir, what about you? Would you like to contribute?" And the person says, "Well, no, I'm actually not interested in science. Like, it's not really my thing. Thank you very much." And Neil deGrasse Tyson be like, "Oh, sorry, no. I mean, I don't think you're making the right decision here. Look, it's science is for all of us. Like, I hope you'll act smart. I hope you will understand. It's for your own safetyness, right? You know." So, well, of course, it looks very ugly and just meaningless. In fact, yeah, the system is fundamentally unviable as well. As soon as the government will start to work as the wealth redistributor, you will have the whole line of people in Washington DC trying to get the piece of cake instead of competing in the ingenuity of raising funds on the free market through voluntary exchange, they will be competing in the lobbying skills. As a result of that, the legislature, which will be getting passed, will have no regards toward the overall health of the market, which slowly will render it dysfunctional. As a result of that, the people incentives to create new wealth will be destroyed, the quality of life will plummet, the debt skyrocket, and the whole system collapse, like Weimar Republic. So in some sense, the answer to the question is we don't really have a choice. There's no simple, stable, fixed point in this leftist altruistic world. It has to go down at some point. Academia will be defunded. In fact, that's what she said herself. So it's not accidental in her response that the functions which she still deemed necessary are the ones which are directly connected to the original purpose of the US government, which is protection of individual rights. In this case, she mentioned national defense and advisory to Congress. I would like to a certain extent compare it to Yaron's Brook position here. I hope we could play it.
That really comes out of our experiences in modern times, and certainly what's going on right now. But really, that's been going on for the last, 80, 90 years. And that is a separation of state from science. A separation of state from science. A clear articulation of the fact that the state doesn't have a position on science, an opinion on scientific truth. It doesn't have a view about what science is correct and what is not. It doesn't have it doesn't fund science. And again, here you would have to have one caveat, one exemption. And you'd have to be very clear on it, because this is anytime you have an exemption, this is where you could have abuse.
Right? See.
That is, the exemption should be for national security, for defense.
Yeah, okay. So, as you can see, his position is somewhat similar. He make same exemption for national defense, because he's basically also the proponent of the original function of the government. But the main part he made is somewhat unclear. It's hard to tell what does it mean that the government should be separated from science. Basically, if the Congress want to pass some law, yeah, the modern understanding of science should be taken into account in it. For example, if somebody dumps toxic chemicals in the river, or as a result of the manufacturing process, or into the air, and people who just live nearby in the houses like inhale them, and they suspect that this might cause some damage to the health, some long-term, totally not obvious, not immediately obvious damage, right? And the Congress will have to basically make a decision whether people's rights will be violated in this case or not. How do we figure this out? We'll need to use some scientific evidence. This means we can't really decouple science from the government, because the questions of whether rights were violated or not depends on our scientific knowledge in some situations. In fact, early in his video, he said something even more strange. He said that he wants the government to stay away from ideas, or be decoupled from ideas. which is something even more unclear, because moral ideas are ideas as well. And I saw that the whole point of his philosophy is that the objective morality exists, and our best current understanding of it should be enshrined in our laws. So it seems bizarre to assume that the government could be decoupled from ideas. Maybe I just didn't quite get what he means. So now I'm going back to the Sabine's position, because now I've shown that I probably have pretty similar ones, if you clarify some sort of misunderstandings. And I want to point out that I think that her position is basically unsustainable as well. If you have this special advisory boards to Congress, it will create potential conflict of interests. These top bureaucrats will accumulate huge amount of power, like I tried to describe in my previous videos. By just making public statements, they will effectively making requests for manufacturing scientific consensus by these normices below them in academia to back their claims, which then will be transferred to Congress and made into laws and enforced on other people. Basically, what happens usually, that the system slowly moves into where we are right now. You could say that today, for any part of research, we could always say that it's either necessary for advice to Congress or for national defense. What's even more scary is the emergence of these bureaucratic organizations. The advisory boards, they basically effectively become agencies, which are just given this broad, uncleared powers from the Congress to regulate all aspects of our lives, without even proper oversight and complete lack of transparency. Like, for example, FDA was recently given completely Orwellian responsibilities and jurisdictions to regulate everything which could cause harm. And they were also given guns. So these bureaucracies, they don't adhere to the principle of separation of powers. They pass their own legislation, they are the own judiciary branch, and they are the own enforcement. This idea is like entirely un-American. They effectively rule us like kings. They could break into your house and kill your squirrel. That would never happen in the original American vision of the government. In fact, this is a relatively new phenomena. It was somewhat coined originally by Woodrow Wilson, but after him, of course, greatly amplified, who have seen politicians as dirty, unscrupulous, untrustworthy and corrupt, and have seen scientists as bright and virtuous and uncorruptible. You see, that's where we start seeing this virtue of altruism. Of course, this idea is entirely wrong, and without proper check and balance system, which founding father has designed specifically, the system will just result into this ugly tyranny. Basically, the original American form of government, a constitutional republic, was replaced by technocracy. So unfortunately, I don't think we need any advisory board funded by taxpayers for the United States Congress. Neither we need any of this bureaucracy. I think the key moment here is that all decisions regarding legislation should be taken directly by electable officials. And of course, they could invite any people they want into Congress, into the House of Representatives, and held public, open debates. And after that, they could make their own informed decisions, so that everybody in Congress and everybody in the public understand what decision, what outcomes the decision was motivated by, what outcome of the debate. I think this will greatly reduce all of these problems, if not eliminate them completely, which I talked about. I think that's how it should work. Now I would like to address the second part, which is the question of national defense, which is probably even more difficult question. It's one of the, I guess, unresolved questions in the free market movement. Because of course the same problems will haunt this question as well. Yeah, I would like to remind Yaron and Brook that most of this funding of high energy physics which you have today grew out of the Manhattan Project or similar like ideas. Basically, the government kind of realized that whatever these weird nerds with high energy stuff are doing could potentially be used for national defense. And again, Yaron Brooks is asking for some sort of proper control. He's talking about it here.
So it'd still be possible under this constitution, this new constitution, to have a Manhattan Project.
Yeah, he will mention Manhattan Project himself.
And to have ongoing Defense Department funding, particularly lines of research that explicitly and unambiguously are serving national security needs. I don't know whether it's research into missiles or whether it's research into today, even into hacking and cybersecurity and things like that. But I don't know how you do this, but somehow the burden has to be very high.
Yeah, you see, he said, I don't know how you're gonna do this, right? Indeed, this question is entirely not obvious. I could propose you two solutions, but none of them is really perfect. So one possibility is that, of course, as he said in the beginning of the video, taxation should be voluntary, right? That's the important part. And that resolves a lot of questions already as well. And the Department of Defense is a private company hired to serve protective functions by Congress. So this approach has some advantages and disadvantages. Now the company decides by itself what kind of research it wants to fund. It's not a problem. And you enjoy all the benefits, standard benefits of the private company effectiveness in this service, because it's operated for profit. However, there is no transparency now. The company doesn't have to tell Congress how it operates, what are its methods, which defense facilities it builds and funds. So it doesn't have any oversight. However, the only balance in the system is the fact that Congress is funded through voluntary donations, and if the company becomes ineffective, it gains too much power on the market because of this governmental contract, like how it usually happens, and it starts to become loose and disregards customers, the Congress will have to abandon it, abolish the contract and make a new one with some other company. So of course you could say, well, will it not look like some sort of revolution? Yeah, basically this company will just become overpowered and then eliminate other ones and will not allow the Congress to make a new contract. Well, that's kind of fair, and it's not clear indeed what's going to happen and whether this is sustainable indeed. So other option could be the opposite. If the Department of Defense is indeed part of the government, but now it's fully transparent, and people again could voluntarily fund any research within it, or any other endeavor which Department of Defense would like to engage in. Like, for example, somebody would like to, I don't know, eliminate some Houthi rebels. Well, the Department of Defense could have to gather funds from the public to do it, right? And so on. Yeah, the state, as I already said, the system has some advantages, basically transparency, immediate control, immediate checks on Department of Defense, which is again very dangerous. But of course it has some drawbacks as well, which is basically it's a sort of public run company, and which could not even have its own secrets, which could be necessary for its effective operation. Basically, in general, if companies run by the crowd, which are not directly interested in the level of its incomes, the effectiveness will drop. So you could say this Department of Defense will become useless over time and it will have to be replaced by something else. It's possible it will be precisely overtaken by some other private companies. That leads us to some sense third position, which is every person instead of Congress decides for himself which kind of protective company he would like to choose, which provides legislative, judicially, and enforcement powers. Basically, that's true anarcho-capitalism. That's another proposition. However, it's somewhat not well defined, because you could say the governments already compete with each other on the market to provide better services, and they could form non-trivial structures like, this township has its own government, county has a government above it, state is some government above it, and the federal government is the biggest company above them, providing this protective service. And they make these non-trivial agreements, what they're gonna do if somebody, commit a federal crime or state crime, and so on, how do we, rule, or if somebody commit a crime in one state and then escape to another state, and so on. So they made these agreements with each other. And sometimes they have literally incompatible legislations, right? Some counties denounce federal regulations regarding the Second Amendment, refuse to enforce them. Some states did the same. So you could say, by this definition, we already living in some sort of anarcho-capitalism. Just the problem is the same questions about the structure of each protective companies remain unanswered. Basically, what kind of laws should we pass? What the role of science in passing these laws should be? This is the questions which this perspective does not really answer, and we have to think about them ourselves. I think this is the end. I would like to end this video here. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.